Okay.
Tell us about your early years.
I was thinking I would start from my school days. So on the whole, I spent most of my time in my primary school in St. Anthony Boys School, which is all my 6 years there. And then I went to St. Joseph from secondary 1 to pre-U 2. Most of my time in St. Joseph was a school librarian. To this day, I still have a affinity, a love for books. As a librarian, I can skip classes, tell my teacher that I've done my work, go to the library, air condition, and do my reading. So I think that's the best part of HGI. Because I was a librarian, I could stay in the library until midnight, lock up the place, climb over the fence to get out because lock out the main gate. So I would say my younger days was a lot of freedom since my mother left me alone and I did whatever I want to do. So that was the other advantage I had. I was living in Handy Road next to KT. As you know, KT Theatre, if any of you remember, had very good local movies. And I think you are too young for that. We call Pontianak. You heard of it? Minyak Man. So whenever there's a Malay movie, there was a little car park opposite KT Theatre, of which there were two sisters who are managing the car park for motorcycles and bicycles. So I popped in to help them to make sure the bicycles and motorcycles are parked properly. I get 5 cents per bicycle. And after my A-level, I got a scholarship from Canadian government to study engineering in Toronto. I did for 4 years. On my return, I ended up a short while in Ministry of Finance for a month, and I complained I was dying of boredom. Ministry of Finance is all budget work. So I said, I'm an engineer, trained engineer, why I'm in finance? So to get rid of me, they sent me to MINDEF. So I ended up in MINDEF from July 1970 until 1985 December, one of the longest part of my background. So that gives you an idea of my youth. And I leave it to Dennis to degree me now.
And your first girlfriend was? Because I know he's going to talk about work and work, so I'm going to...
Well, I met my wife when I was a young teacher, and we went to Canada, came back, married. But I didn't have a kid until after I left for Harvard, came back, then I had my kid. So my son is now, this year is 40. My daughter is 30. My son is in San Diego. He's a professor of neuroscience. My daughter is doing a doctorate of clinical psychology in Chicago. Both are away, so we're empty nest. I try to visit them once, twice a year. And that's how my kids. So for those who have kids, try to make sure you have more. 2 is very lonely.
So, Philip, would you like to then move on to your favorite part of your life, which is work? Tell us a bit about your early years in your career, and especially the part about you working with Dr. Goh Keng Swee. So tell us things that maybe were not in the book.
I joined the Ministry of Defense in July 1970 because the civil service did not know what to do. I was an engineer, but I didn't have a job for engineering. Put me on administrative service. So I was misplaced anyway. So anyway, I went to Defense in July 1970. In October, Dr. Goh came over to replace me, Lim Kim San, the exchange post. So Dr. Goh came over as Minister of Defense in 1970. So my first job was to build up logistics systems. I had a branch called Logistics Systems and Research Branch. And I have only established one for 4 posts. I had myself, Master Statistics, 2 National Service Engineers, 1 Civil, 1 Electrical, and a Secretary. So obviously I don't have enough people to do my work. What I did was went to visit the Army logistic bases. Under our bases, we have about 9 bases, 9,000 people. I went through computer, look for people who have 1 eye, 1 leg. Means basically they are not fit for combat, misplaced. So I asked the commander, can I have your man to work for me for free? I don't pay. The salary is still based with the unit. And what I offered the $90 young man was no uniform, no saluting, no guard duty. Obviously, I got a lot of volunteers. So from an establishment of 5 posts plus myself, I have hundreds of illegal. So Dr. Goh knew that these are all illegal people because whenever he had a job, he called me, I have this project, can you get someone to help me? I send him my illegal, he doesn't complain. So that was a way in life that you can always learn to steal people to do a job because to hire people you have no budget and to borrow you have to return. So stealing for the public good is good.
Tell us about your times with Dr. Goh Keng Swee.
Well, Dr. Goh, as a Minister of Defense from 1970 to 79, he left in February 79 to go Ministry of Education. He was a very hard boss. There was a joke that when two people that go to see Dr. Goh, one may come out dead. Because the old man is very stern, very short-tempered, he doesn't listen to grandmother's stories. So basically, but on the other hand, if you're capable, give you a lot of rope. His philosophy in life was, for those who are good, I give them more work. For those who are not good, no work. So no pay, you know. The idea is that if you are good, you get more work, he gives you more work, and therefore, the first thing you learn is how to subcontract the work. Otherwise, you die of overwork. On the other hand, if you feel you're no good, he doesn't want to see you again. So you become ostracized, whatever it is. So the trick is that if he doesn't give you any work, you better leave. So the joke is that, yes, he's very hard taskmaster, but on the other hand, gives you a lot of freedom. How you get a job done, he doesn't care. Just get it done. I give you an example. When I was head of in 1970, I was head of a branch. By 1971, 1 year later, I was head of the department. So I got fast promotion. So he used to complain because in my portfolio, I have a technical department with all engineers, national service, full-time. He used to complain that my engineers are very theoretical, etc., complain. So I was very fed up with him. I went home on a Saturday, Sunday, wrote a list of names. And on Monday, I closed down the department, transferred all the engineers to chartered industries, automotive ordnance, all the defense companies. So on a Monday, all the engineers disappeared. From that day, they won't complain again.
Serious? Yeah. How many do you transfer?
I just transferred. The whole department closed down. The reason he was bad is because all those engineers were fresh graduates. It wasn't their fault, no experience. So I sent them out to units. To this day, I was just in Munich. One of the officers I sent out in 1971, Mr. Low used to run my Akron, still remembers I posted him to ODE. So I posted all the engineers out, and eventually I brought some back to build up the department, and Dr. Goh never complained again. So the trick is when you have a boss who's difficult, you just take him on. What can you do to me? At most, you fire me, I'll be happier. I possibly get more pay outside.
Now you know why the book is entitled that way. And your book mentioned that you are a passionate engineer, and you can't resist taking things out and putting back together. So can you just talk a little bit about the interest of yours?
Well, when I was a kid, the first thing whenever I get any sports activities, I get some prize. For example, one thing I was a nice bus. First I took home, took out everything, took out the gears and left it in a mess. So the key is to learn how it works. That's how we produce our own Optimax. That's how we produce our own mortar system. That's how we produce our 155 guns. Everything we did was, you did it by taking apart, putting it back together is no problem. For example, I bought an artillery gun, 155, $1 million US. I got all my engineers to sit down and says, let's take it apart, see how it works, and build our own system. And we came up with the FH-88. Today it's now in the standard issue in the Army. But when that gun was taken apart, the biggest problem, how to explain $1 million investment is all bits and pieces. So to this day, I don't know anybody could remember where the pieces are. Because in MINDEF, you got to count for everything. But fortunately, I got a company to pay for the $1 million of equipment to take apart, because as an engineer, you want to see how a thing works. And the only way to understand is to take apart, to see how it fit, to measure it, to understand how it works. So I think that's a passion of engineer, taking things apart. Putting it together is something else. Yeah. So the passion of engineer is to build something that is usable.
I noticed you like to get the young people to work for you. And I mean, I don't think you were that young then already. How do you attract the young people to?
Well, when I joined EDB as chairman in 1986, I was already 40 or so, not that young. But I believe when I was in defense, I joined defense as 24-year-old until I continued as a pump sec. Because we are young, we are reckless. We're willing to do things, and most you get sacked, right? The moment you are mature, you're a family, you think twice. You don't want to rock the boat. So to me, the only way to grow EDB was find a lot of young people, send them out. If they don't come back, then they're in trouble. So the idea is to encourage what I used to tell my people. I need people with the tenacity, the drive to get a job done. And when they're out for 3 to 5 years, they come back, they are more experienced, then next batch go. In EDB, when I joined 86, was overseas officers are there for life. They don't come back. 10 years, 14 years. And EDB officers who stay at home. How do you bring that? So I said, no, from 1st of April 86, I sent officers all about less than 30. They're out on 3 years. If they do well, they continue the next appointment, 2 more years, they come home. Today in EDB, the whole of EDB, everybody has an overseas posting. No such thing as, see, if you have an officer out for 10 to 15 years, they develop localitis, a very terrible disease. What is that? Everything cannot be done. When you send a young, greenhorn, reckless young man, he can do it. Even he can't do it, crack his head.
So
the
Philip,
idea is
how
send
do you
young
get
people.
the reckless greenhorn to get an audience with the CEOs of MNCs whom you're trying to cut deals with?
Okay, I help them because I go on the road, I visit the companies, and my young officer follow me. After the meeting, they go and follow up. So I am a door opener. The young officer's job is to make sure after the door is opened by me, with the chairman and CEO of the company, you make sure you follow up. And you have people like Shuresh sitting here, you know what it's like. Door opener says, now that I open the door, you better get something done. So the key is that young people are used to, see, if I come out to EDB New York for 3 years, I want to make sure I can get some achievement. Even if I don't achieve, the next guy coming in will make sure the work I've done, it continues. So the credit must also go to him. So the idea is that when you have people posted overseas permanently, localitis is a very serious problem.
Okay, as we say, it says you like to collect people.
Yeah.
I guess a more classy way of saying it is you're a talent connoisseur. But first, can you talk about this? And then can you talk about Suisse when he was working with you?
Well, you might remember when I mentioned when I was in defense as 1970, I learned how to steal people. If you want to get a job done, you need people. You can't do it by yourself. The key is how to get people. You need to steal people. You need to. So from my defense experience, I developed expertise in stealing people, legally or illegally. So wherever I go, I look to borrow people. There was a reputation when people are stolen, it must be Philip Yeo. Not a bad reputation because wherever I go, to get my job done, I need good people. And the key is that if I can spot and find good people, I should take them and get my job done. Whoever the employer or the boss, good luck to them. Yeah. So, so I remember, say for A-Star, when I was chairman of A-Star, my biggest challenge was that in all research labs, most of the scientists there are not Singaporeans, which is surprising to me because very few young people want to do PhD studies. So what I did was I took my research budget, took 10% out, created a budget of 1 billion for 10 years. Today we have now trained 1,400 PhDs, all Singaporeans. Now, because I cannot have all Singaporeans, I have to supplement by stealing people from overseas. So I took people from Malaysia, India, Vietnam, and China, bringing them to Singapore, Sec 3 to JC. Every year, every subject A. No A, they go home. Very cruel, but it's for their sake. The moment you finish A-level, you compete with Singaporeans, they get accepted to the top universities, and they are non-Singaporeans, they get a green card because they are still below 21. And they must finish their PhD, their bachelor's degree in 3 years, perfect score, minimum 3.8, or first class honors UK. Then at the age of 21, I give them a Singapore citizenship, send them for a PhD, come back. So in a sense, I supplement our population because we have only, today we have about maybe 40,000 babies. Assuming top 10% 4,000, very limited pool.
Now 36,000.
36,000, it's very limited pool. Now, by bringing the young people from India, Vietnam, China, and Malaysia, young, Sec 3, they grew up to be Singaporeans.
I want to go back to another question. I think most of your work you've tried to, in Spring or former PSP, you tried to raise productivity and standards and innovation, which we talk a lot about this in Parliament, that there's still a long way to go. Can you just share your views on this?
Well, I would say today the environment or the support for startups is quite good. You see, in my generation, the moment you graduate, you look for a job because you are responsible to take care of your parents. In our new generation today, the kids are not, the parents do not depend on them. So they are more adventurous. They go and do their own startups, which is good because I think there's a change. I think the young people today won't want to be their own boss. So what we have done in Spring was support by funding grants JTC have to build the facilities, because I told them you better build so they can rent the space properly. I'm confident that young people today will make it. Now, whether they can succeed, because as you know, whatever stuff they do, they're one of the failures. You're lucky, maybe 1 in 5 or 10 succeed, but they must learn from that failure. So what Spring has done is to provide the seed capital, provide the grant support, JTC support in terms of rental space. And I see, for example, in the area opposite Fusion Police, the startups are doing quite well. So recently I took a team of EDB, JTC, and Spring office with me to visit Toronto, and then they went out to California to see how other places are doing startups. I would say on the whole we are doing not bad. But remember, we are still fairly young in this area. So my own view is that it will take time. But I always tell the young people, whatever product or service you do not think of the Singapore market. There is no market. Whatever you want to do, think of a market beyond Singapore. What I call a global market. That's the only way you survive. If you think of the local market, very tough. So now we have seen some of the young people now gone over to, there's a Singapore Jakarta hub there now. Hopefully they're changing. I also noticed there are people from Vietnam coming to our startup. So it will take time. I am confident that the young people can do it. The biggest challenge we have now is, my concern is worried what happened to what I call the PMBTs. People who are middle-aged professional when companies are restructuring. That is one of the big concerns, how to help the people in the late 40s, early 50s, 60s, who all of a sudden lose their job because the company are restructuring, the company are relocating. That is one of the worry that I have, how to help them. I remember visiting ITE, and I told the principal of ITE and Suresh, we're building some ways to help them acquire new skills, that they can find themselves something to do, because it is a social responsibility that we have.
Now, life now. Philip, what's life now for you?
Well, when Mr. Lee retired in August 2011, Mr. Lee Kuan Yew retired as MM in 2011, and because I was working for him, I was on his payroll, but I was never in his office, I had my own office. When he retired, I decided to quit. So since then, I've been doing my own work. I provide economic advice, industrial advice to different governments. I travel, and I also run some of my companies as a hobby. I did Spring from April 2017 now as pro bono, means no money. So I do it because of my background. So I enjoy doing overseas. Every month I'm in Tokyo with Hitachi board. Every 3 months I'm in Hong Kong with carry logistics. Every 3 months I go to Riyadh, Ministry of Energy and Industry. And every 3 months I go to Kazakhstan with the Prime Minister's Office on economic development. And I get requests from different countries. So I am having a good fun helping other governments besides Spring. So I noticed how different governments have different challenges. So in a sense, when I was chairman ADB, I did Batam, Wuxi, Vietnam, and Bangalore. I'm now going further away. So I go as far as the Middle East, Kazakhstan, Colombia, wherever they want. There's no shortage of requests except how much time I can spare. So my sense, I'm just using my experience to help other governments because they have the same problem, how to create jobs. The same challenge as we have. For example, in Saudi Arabia, they have about maybe 2/3 of population below 30. Quite a big challenge for government. So I work with the Ministry of Industry and Energy. My chairman is a minister, trying to find ways and programs to create jobs for them. Same as Astana, Kazakhstan, same request. Help in every country, the most important thing for any government is create jobs for your people. You cannot create jobs for people, you have no right to be in charge. Because the people look up to you as you has to create a job. You cannot be on welfare. No country survives on welfare. So you need to create activities that give your people gainful employment so they are proud that they have a job, they have a family to take care.
It takes two, right? I mean, because some of us are involved in the future economy and actually things are quite disruptive. So CISA used to say it's not that there are no jobs. Sometimes the skills are
well, I just sent an article to CISA this morning. There's a very good article in New Yorker. The title of the article is quite a long page article called Dark Factory. Now, what's a dark factory? Today with automation, the worker in the past had to do all the heavy lifting, or the difficult work. Today, robots assisting the worker. But more and more companies are going further to automate, to mechanize the robot as much. So the idea of a dark factory means technically 24/7, there's no worker. Now what happened to the worker who displaced? Now in this article, in New Yorker talks about workers in Steelcase. Steelcase is the biggest company that makes furniture, steel tables and chairs. It's a very big company. They are retrenched from over 10,000 now to 2,000 people. But they're producing more because in their factories, now from 7 factories to 2 factories in the US, in Michigan, plus another place, the factories are manned a lot by robots. No tea time, no tea break. But it's a challenge then. What the company hires are more engineers, more technicians, because machines break down. The machines have been taken care of by technicians. Engineers do the design. So where are the jobs for the workers who are not technically trained? It's a big challenge. The younger people are okay if they learn the skill set, but the older people, you have to take care of them. So in this article, the young professor at Brown University, anybody from Brown University, and she's a young lady, the assistant professor, robotics, MIT trained. She's now worried that in the factory it is helping to automate and mechanize. Where are the jobs for the non-skilled workers? That means there are no jobs for people who are not a technician, not an engineer. And it's a really worry for any government.
Philip, let me just, you sound so, every time I see you, besides very fast, very energetic, your memory is like, so solid, and you seem so fearless. So do you have any fear at all in your life, what are the toughest times
fear I have
you
is
have
boredom.
experienced? Boredom, okay.
Nothing to do, sit under a coconut tree, that's terrible.
But you even think, I read somewhere, you even think that going for a wedding dinner is boring?
Wedding dinners, yeah. Well, anyway, I was interviewed by Mothership, I was just making a joke. Mothership style.
It's not true.
Well, what I was complaining, I get invitation to a wedding dinner. They say 7:30. I arrive at 7:30 sharp. I'm not a late type person. I sit down there, 8:30 they start. Right, then they start with baby pictures, videos, how they met, then the speeches by the MC. By the time dinner's over, it's 11 o'clock. That's terrible. It's worse than playing golf. I don't play golf anyway. So my own view that my more productive way. I attended one of my friend's daughter. Instead of a dinner, she had a lunch reception. So got a place in Raffles Hotel near the water fountain, all the local food, laksa, everything, and buffet. Eat what you want and you go. You come and greet the bride and bridegroom, put the ang pao, go eat the buffet and you go home.
No baby photo?
No baby photo. I think
that's industry standard,
Yeah, it's become so. I was in Houston with George Yeo. Jennifer was under treatment, then his daughter Edwina relocated. Edwina at the lunch with me and her father and said, "Uncle Philip, I saw the video about wedding dinners, how you don't like it." So George Yeo says, "Uncle Philip says things that we all want to say, but they're not say."
I like the baby part, yeah. Okay, so what are some of the, if you want to share, what are some of the toughest times in your life, that just tough?
Well, in everyone's life, there's always tough roads ahead. But the key is that I sit down and grumble, look for ways to find a way out. So the idea is always keep a positive approach. So any difficulty I face, I don't think I really ever sat down more than a minute to complain. So the key is that whatever you want to do, you do. How to keep active, how to be positive. So when I was away for 2 years in Harvard, before I came back, the greatest worry was what's happening in Asia, what's happening in Vietnam. So when I came back, the first thing is I started pushing things. So my own view is that this life is a series of obstacles. The key, you have to take a positive view and then get it going. So I don't see myself as ever being cowed by difficulties. I used to tell my people, nothing is impossible. I used to joke, miracles take a bit longer. So you need to have a positive attitude to get things done. That's it.
Okay, my final question to you, Philip Yeo, is, you seem to do a lot of things in your life and you get away with it. You know,
Well,
you get all these
There
illegal
are two things.
army
One
guys.
is I do a lot of illegal things because I do it for the public good. So in my view, there's nothing wrong. I used to tell my people, to borrow, we have to return. The best way to get talent is to steal talent for the public good. So my own view is that if you want to get anything done, be willing to do it. On the other hand, you must always find good people because you can't do it alone. The key to find good people that you can give them maximum delegation, give them the freedom to run. I remember when I was working, Dr. Goh then was breathing on my neck. He only asked, what's happening, anything happening. So today you have to find bosses that allow you the freedom. So I used to tell my young people, you cannot choose your parents, you can choose your bosses. So if your boss is always bringing down a neck, don't work for him or her. You know, good people will deliver unlimited productivity so long they feel they have pride, they have ownership, they have a stake. If you break down a neck, I don't think you'll very happy people, unless what they want is a mule or a donkey. So the key is that the secret weapon to getting a work done is find good subcontractors. Find good people who can take down the job, give it to them, so then they can continue to build a job. So the key is if I got a job, I look for good people to allocate, give it to them, and give them the due credit. So the secret weapon is find enough subcontractors. People want to do. Don't do all things because you have need 2 hands, 2 legs, and 1 brain. The key is how to go around my branch of 4 or 5 people. I managed to steal a lot of people illegally. All I offered them was freedom, no uniform, no parade, no saluting, and no pay. And they work for me. So that's the secret weapon. Give people the freedom to do the job, and they will do it.
And that's Philip Yeo for you, ladies and gentlemen. Can we give him a round of applause?